Hello and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. Today is our last podcast episode for the year of our Lord 2024. We are about to take a 3-week-long break to enjoy the holidays with our families and our friends. And it's a well-deserved break because Jason's been kicking butt editing this podcast. But we're going to be going out of the year talking about the year as a whole. 2024 had a lot of ups. And we're going to talk about some of our favorite cards, some of our favorite sets, some of our favorite moments as a YouTube channel. It's going to be a good time. Speaking of that said, editor Jason, how's it going, Jason?
It is going wonderful. This has been, as far as this channel, it's been a really great year. I'm really happy with a lot of the stuff that we were able to do. I really think that there's some episodes that people just kind of missed out on that are really good. So go back through, check out some of the other episodes that we put out. I'm happy to be able to do this with you guys. I'm excited for another year, 2025. I feel like when we get down to the Christmas episode that year, it's going to be like, holy smokes, this is our fourth one.
Yeah. I was kind of having that as I've been working on the Christmas episode. That is out now, but when we're recording this, it's not out yet. That it's just crazy that we've been doing this, the gameplay series we've been doing for over 3 years now. Like, it's just crazy that we've been doing it that long. So, but yeah, Jason's right. There's a lot of cool podcast episodes and gameplay episodes that you guys either missed or you haven't seen because you're new. So if you have a little bit of extra time over this 3 weeks that we're going to be taking a break from the podcast, go check it out. It's a good time. We're cool guys. We're a cool group to hang out with. We also have, as part of that cool group, is Preston. How's it going, Preston?
Going pretty good. I'm really happy with everything we did this year. I think it's been our best year yet, and hopefully we can make the next year even better.
I can get behind that, and I am your host, Morgan. I am very excited about this 3-week break, but I agree with Preston that we did a lot of cool stuff this year. We got a lot of cool new cards this year, and I'm excited for what's coming next year. So if you would like to support the show, do all the YouTube algorithm stuff that you're supposed to do for the YouTube channels you like. Become subscribed if you're not already. I've seen the analytics. I know a lot of you guys who watch are not subscribed. Leave a helpful comment. Be engaged in the topic. Hit like. Share it with a friend. Check out all of our other videos, like Jason already said. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can head over to patreon.com/geekandseek YouTube. When I come back from my break, my first thing on my to-do list is finally finish the Patreon episode of our gameplay series. That's a Patreon only exclusive that I said I was going to finish a couple months ago, and I still haven't because life happens. But we'll do it. It'll happen. That's the first thing on my to-do list. So if you want to see that, become a patron.
Also, I want to say this because by the time this episode comes out, and we should have said it on the last episode because by the time that one comes out, this will also have happened. Morgan had another baby.
Yes.
Woo!
Well, I guess last week, we're recording these pretty far in advance. Last week he might not be here yet, but this week,
Okay.
yes, he will for sure be here by this time.
For sure this one. Morgan had another baby. Woo! Congrats, my guy.
Thanks. That's another reason I'll be excited to be taking a break. I'll need the sleep when I can get it. But it's exciting. We're really happy. Favorite comment of the week. This is from the Acrosa. This is a comment that was left on the video that I made by this point that you guys are seeing this a couple weeks ago, where I was comparing Card Kingdom versus TCG Player. And Acrosa says, I'm a huge fan of buying damaged cards off of TCG Player. Someone's got to play with them. And that's a great point. Like, there is something charming about damaged cards. Especially if you're playing like a budget deck or you're playing a deck that's like an old school commander. There's something kind of charming about like those grimy, mucked up, scuffed cards. It is kind of cool. And also check out the Acrosa. He's a YouTuber. He's got a little bit of a channel going on. He just made like a 20-minute long Animal Planet style documentary about why there should be more bats in Magic. Sick video. Go check it out.
I want to say I've said on the podcast before that one way to help build budget decks with good cards that are sometimes expensive is buy damaged versions of them. It's still the same card. Who cares what it looks like? So I'm glad that this was put into the comments.
Yeah, especially in Commander. No one's gonna accuse you of stacking your deck or anything. All right. So a couple news things. I guess go watch the Christmas episode. It just came out on Friday. Those are always like a really big undertaking. They take a lot more extra work than our normal episodes, but they're always some of our favorite episodes. I feel like this year was no different. Third year doing a Christmas episode. Go check out the Christmas episode. And again, we'll be returning with the podcast after a 3-week break. We'll be back January 8th with a new episode. All right, let's start off with we have 6 categories of best of 2024. First category, let's start with a YouTube specific thing. What is your guys' favorite video we made this year and why? Preston, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so my favorite video we did this year was the pre-cons throughout history. That's episode 32 of our gameplay series. And it was just a fun experiment to see like the different power levels that pre-cons have had over the years. The high ends of, Edgar Markov. Tommy played that. That's always a big, scary one. I played something truly abysmal, but it let me kill myself in a game of Magic, which is my favorite thing to do. So, yeah, it's a good one. If you have not watched that yet, you should. I promise you it's worth it.
Yeah, that was I wasn't in that episode, but I was like really bummed that it like underperformed. And maybe it was just like I didn't come up with a creative enough title for it or something. But like you guys got to show like everyone, all 4 of you guys had a different pre-con from a different year that focused on a different theme and different archetype. And it was just really cool to see how in 2017 and I guess you with 2015, I think, like you guys were playing like a bunch of like literal guild gates and stuff in your mana base. And then we get up to like the present day and Steven's got like on synergy artifact lands and Jason's got like, the good dual lands from the new Innistrad sets. Like it's just crazy how like even just like not even necessarily just talking about synergy, but just like the fundamentals of the game, like in your land slots, how much design philosophy has changed for Wizards of the Coast and precons. And it was an exciting game. There's some cool things happened.
I enjoyed that game a lot because I picked the Doctor Who precon specifically because one of the main reasons was because I don't know Doctor Who very well, and so I thought it would be a nice challenge for me to try and pilot that deck. And I had such a great time. There were so many fun cards in that deck that I got to play that I play in other decks now. If you haven't seen that episode, you're really missing out. You're not doing yourself any favors by continuing to ignore its existence. Go check it out.
Including a little displaced dinosaur, right, Jason?
Dude, that card is sweet. If that card came out this year, that'd be my favorite card.
For sure. Jason, what was your favorite video that we made this year?
So, maybe a controversial pick for me specifically, but it was the Bloomborough episode. So, we had 2 games that episode because the first game went by pretty quickly because on turn 5, Steven comboed off and killed everybody. And I was quite upset about it. I was not feeling it because I was like, oh man, this isn't good content. This is not what we're supposed to be putting out. And I was a whiny little baby. I will admit that. But it was still, hindsight, it was pretty cool that Steven got to do that. And then in the next game, I got to do my thing with my frogs, man. I played the 2 instant sorcery cards that I really, really was hoping I'd get to play. Being Turn to Frog and Polymorphous Jest. Dude, because when I was building the deck, I found those cards in my collection and I was like, you know what?
Just turn other things into frogs.
Why don't we all have frogs? We should all have frogs. And I got to stop Steven from comboing off, but with the Polymorphous Jest, it was such a good time. It felt so good. I totally forgot who won that game, that second game, because that specific moment was stuck in my head. Also, Glarb was such a fun commander, and I'm going to have that commander deck for a while because I just enjoyed playing it so much. It literally does my favorite thing. I don't know if you noticed a theme here, but our favorite games were games where we got to do our favorite thing. Look at the top card of my library, dude. Play stuff from the top. Oh my gosh. And I found that infinite combo that I put in there by mistake. Didn't even realize it was in there. It's pretty janky. just because I have to level up that enchantment to level 3, which takes a ton of mana, and I have to have the Sensei's Divining Top. But still, the fact that I was able to do that in game, it's such a fun game. I love that game so much.
Yeah, it was a good one. Bloomberg, I know just people really liked, and I agreed that like in the moment. So Steven was playing a squirrel deck, and he already had a squirrel deck. He has a Chatterfang deck, and then for the Bloomberg episode, he switched out like 15, 20 cards or something so that it was more Bloomburrow specific. But like I would say that his Chatterfang deck is like debatably his best deck. So he rolls up with it, and we're all just like, "Oh yeah, Bloomburrow, yeah, cool." And he like combos off on turn 5. We're all like, "Whoa, bro, calm down." And honestly, I think that that's okay because one, I'm happy that Steven actually has a really good deck. Like good for him. Like he has a couple decks that like could use some love. So the fact that he has one deck that's like it can really fight and is like a threat is good for him. But then like we shuffled up and played again. And we played 2 games in that episode. And yeah, that was kind of a pain for me as far as editing. That meant like instead of an hour and a half to 2 hours of footage, I had like I think over 3 hours of footage to go through. But I mean we got to do it, and he got to pop off, go ballistic, and everyone got to see that part of Squirrels. And then in game 2, everyone else got to do their thing. So it worked out really good as far as like getting to showcase other people's everyone's decks, and specifically a lot of the new cards and themes in Bloomburrow, which was nice.
In the moment, I felt a type of way, but looking back on it, I'm glad that Steven got to do the thing.
Yeah, me too. And because I think in casual Commander specifically, people have an over hatred for combos, and I think that's not fair. Like Steven's combo was like 3 or 4 pieces. Like the deck has some resiliency and redundancy.
It's 2.
No,
it was
right?
2.
Right?
No, because it was 2. Because it was literally just the Ivy League Denizen.
Oh yeah,
Ivy
yeah.
Lane
but then he like
Denizen.
couldn't win right
And
away,
then
right? He needed the third piece. He needed the third piece to win right away, right?
I can't remember. I don't think that the creatures got haste from the 2-card combo that makes the infinite creatures. So I think that he needed something.
He needed
with
the
haste.
third card to actually win there. So I mean, like that's just like that
the
just
third
happens,
card,
man. Like
which was a Bloomburrow card.
Yeah. All right, and then did you have anything to add about that, Preston?
No, as we'll see as we go down this list, I was a big fan of Bloomburrow, the video and just the set in general. So I'm excited for it. I was glad that we got to do that episode, and it was a good one.
Yeah. And then my favorite video that we did this year, I think it's fun that we all chose gameplay videos. I know that's like not the only thing we do on the channel, but like it's kind of the most fun. It's a lot of work, and there's a reason we don't do it as often as we used to, but yeah, man.
It's when we all can get together and enjoy each other's company.
Right, yeah. So the one I chose is the Revenge Week for Season 2. That was episode 34. So everyone from Season 2 got to come back and give a deck a second chance.
Well, everyone except who?
Yes,
again?
except Jason.
Yeah.
Because Jason had the best win rate, so we weren't going to let him come back for Revenge Week. But I thought that game just frickin' ruled because because the 3 of other guys in the game other than me, they all got to like do way better, like in their revisit. Like they proved the point of that theme of getting to give a deck a second chance. They got to prove why the theme was good to do, because like the first time they would play those decks, absolute failure. Then they bring it back and it actually has a moment to shine and pop off. And Tommy went from not hitting a white mana source until like turn 9 in the Ixalan episode to becoming arch enemy in Revenge Week. So that was a cool flip to see. And then I just love my Quasar deck. It did fine the first time I played it. I just brought it back because I thought it was cool. And I some really fun interactions happened, and it was a quick game. The table banter was good. There was an oopsie on my part that ended up being really funny. So it was a good episode.
Yeah, any chance I get to play Slivers, I'm happy. So I'm glad I got to do a little better with those because they kind of sucked the first time.
Your slivers haven't really done anything except for that episode.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
I,
Slivers has
I,
been
I
on 3 times, right?
yeah. Well, I think my deck 3 times, and then there's also the Sliver Precon that came out.
Oh, right.
I
Yeah,
think
so
we I think we did that.
we've seen 4 Sliver decks on the show. All right, let's head into a card thing for best of the year. So let's talk about our favorite cards of the year. So I had a few cards that I was looking at. I know that the other guys were kind of in the same spot. There was a lot of really cool things that came out this year. But Preston, what was your favorite card of the year?
well, I think that you should go first because yours is like the most underwhelming.
Okay, fine. Jason's saying that my pick is boring. So I'm going to say that while this isn't the most entertaining answer, I have just found that objectively I should say this. It's the Surveillance. They did the full cycle in Murders at Karlov Manor, all 10 duels. Thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for doing them all in the same set. That makes it so much nice for us players, unlike these incomplete land cycles. So thank you so much. But these are fetchable duels that enter tapped, and then when they enter, you surveil one. It doesn't seem like a lot, but these are gas. I have put these in a ton of my decks. Not literally all of my decks, but auto-include in all my 2-color decks, and then they go in all of my other decks that either care about the graveyard or have ways of specifically fetching them out. So all my green decks have them. All of my decks with fetch lands have them, which isn't all of them, but that's a lot of my decks. So I have found that just having a dual land that you can fetch, that if you don't need an untapped land right then, you just get a little bit of card selection, it's very powerful because it smooths out your draws a smidge, while also, if you're a graveyard deck, putting an extra card into your graveyard, they're just kind of sweet. It's funny, when we did the podcast episode for Murders at Karlov Manor, I was like, yeah, I bet these will be really nice budget lands. And now, like, I think the cheapest one is like $9. Like, they're not budget, but it's not the most exciting pick for card of the year, man, but I have felt like they have made my decks a lot better.
They're objectively good and objectively powerful lands. They do help out a lot for a lot of different decks. Yeah, I was just of the opinion that lands as your favorite was just a little bit boring. That's, not that they're bad. I don't think
If it
that they're
was
bad
like
because
a
I
legendary
definitely play
land
them.
that did something, there's a couple legendary lands out there I think could maybe be interesting, but Morgan, they're $10 tap lands.
But they're fetchable, and it's card selection. And keep in mind, I was high on these before anyone else was. Like, before anyone else, like, when these were previewed, everyone was poo-pooing them, and I was like, no. Like, in Modern, like, wouldn't you want 1 or 2 of these in your Modern decks? Like, if you, like in Modern, you play your fetch, and then you shock in something if you need it, if you need the shock land, but if you don't need the mana right then, you grab the shock land and just don't pay the life. Well, now you get a little bit of card selection when you don't need the mana right away. And it's the same thing carries over. Now you have to be like, okay, well, how many casual people are playing fetch lands in Commander specifically? But, like, fetch lands are a lot easier to get a hold of than they used to be. And green decks can fetch these out. White decks can easily fetch these out. You can grab the blue ones with Lorien Revealed, which is an auto-include in blue decks. And I bought them when they were previewed, which they were like, the expensive ones were $6 a piece then. So I kind of got in on them and got a bunch of them while they were cheap before they got expensive, which is how I was able to get so many of them in my decks.
Well, you enjoy your $10 guild gates. We're going to talk about cards that are actually cool.
My cards are cool. Well, one of the cards I was thinking about putting on my list is a card that hasn't even made it into a deck yet. So I figured between that or cards I actually play, I should talk about the cards I actually played. But what do you have for us, Preston?
All right. So my card for the year is going to be Flubs the Fool. Uh, should we read him out
Yeah, go ahead and read
for
them
this?
out.
Okay. All right. So he's a green, blue, red for a 0/5 Frog Scout. He lets you play an additional land on each of your turns. And whenever you play a land or cast a spell, you draw a card if you have no cards in hand. Otherwise, you discard a card. So this is the deck I played on our Bloomberg episode. He was my favorite card from that set and the whole year, as it turned out. There was a couple that I was going back and forth, but Flubs is just so fun. You have to build a really strange deck. Like you want to include a lot of those strong like landfall cards in here still, but it still builds you. It still pushes you to build it in a slightly different way than you normally would for these colors, and it's a really fun deck. I don't have it put together right now because I used a lot of pieces from my IEC deck, and I put them back in that. So not put together right now, but I'm gonna have to rebuild it on its own at some point because man, it's a fun deck to play.
This was the card that came out of Bloomburrow that everybody was like, "How do you build this? How do you build this deck? How is this supposed to be a winnable commander deck?" And you know what? I just as soon as you said that you were gonna play this for that episode, I just knew that you were gonna build something that was gonna work. And boy, did this freaking thing work! Um, I was so impressed with how you built this deck in that game. And this just as a card is so weird and strange and interesting. And the fact that you were actually able to make it work well, I salute you, good sir.
It's
I've
not
said
even
it
working
before.
well. It's good. It's
I've
so
said this
good.
before. You are a fantastic deck builder.
Oh, stop.
It's funny to me that Jason's right. This was like the card from Bloomberg that everyone's like, how do we make it work? Like, I'm looking at the price history of the card, and really not that long ago, it was like $20. And then it came down to like $7. And now it's like $1 because enough people gave up on it or realized that it
Yeah.
takes a lot of work, or I don't know. But with that said, when you figure it out, it is really cool. And there's a lot of like weird things that you can do about it. Like we talked about this in the podcast episode where we were talking about our favorite cards from Bloomburrow. I think this was one of the cards that Preston picked out, if I remember. And we were like brainstorming like all the weird things because I don't think Preston had really built the deck yet. I think he just knew that it was the commander he was going to build for that episode where he on the Bloomburrow episode, and we were just like spitballing like all the weird things you can do with it. And I don't think there's really any wrong answers. There might be like options that are stronger than others, but like there are a lot of things you can do with it, and it's still like, you know, no one's gonna laugh at you for doing it. Like there's a lot of weird things you can do. It's cool. All right, and then Jason, what was your favorite card of the year?
My favorite card of the year was something a little bit more on the degenerate side, but ever since I put this in a deck, I have loved playing it every single time. It is Grievous Wound. So, this is an enchantment aura. This came from Duskmourn. So, it's one of the cards that came out a little bit later in the year. It's 3 and 2 black, and it says Enchant Player. Enchanted player can't gain life. Preston's favorite thing in the whole world. And then it says, whenever enchanted player is dealt damage, they lose half their life, rounded up. That's awesome. You literally could just like, you could play one of those deserts that ping somebody for one. It's like, ping you for one and half your life, rounded up, please. That type of stuff is incredible. I love it. And you know what? It just makes games end, you know? Like it just makes them go by because somebody dies from this every single time. And my favorite thing to do is to try and subvert the blame and roll the dice and see who gets it at random unless somebody really needs to
No,
have it.
so
Unless
bad.
somebody really needs to have it. And then what sometimes happens in the game is when someone else attacks the enchanted player and they lose half their life. It's like, why'd you make me lose half my life? And then they're like, no, Jason did. I didn't. Jason did. It's his card. And I'm just sitting there like, yes, yes, fight, my little minions.
Now, I'm not falling for that. I'm blaming you every time.
Yeah. I said sometimes it happens. Sometimes.
Yeah, Jason has this in the new it's the backup commander from the Esper enchantment deck from Dustborn, and he got me with this pretty good, and I fought tooth and nail to get it out of here. Like I got hit by it once, and I was like, oh my god, I'm going to die if this happens again, I think. And so I eventually was able to remove it. And then you like got it back because I think that's what the commander does, right? It like lets you get enchantments back from your graveyard.
Enchantments
So
have
then I just
escape.
got it
Yep.
again and died, and I was like, okay. So it does end games. I think if anything, it's kind of crummy in commander because it's only 5 mana and it comes down and it might just mean that one person just dies right then and there because there's ways that you can like deal damage multiple times in turn. Like it's not just about combat damage, it's any damage. So uh someone might just die right then and there, and then they're just
Well,
twiddling their thumbs waiting for
if
game
you
two.
get hit
So
with multiple creatures at once, each one of those creatures gets that trigger.
Yeah.
mhm,
Or like if you hit somebody like with a big creature that has double strike.
mhm. The what I was thinking specifically are like pingers. Like there's a deck that plays this card in standard that uses the I think it's Vine Slash something. It's the lizard that's black from Bloomburrow that has offspring and it has landfall, deal a damage to someone. So
Mm.
you can get people pretty good with that. Um, but yeah, it's a scary card.
It's gross and it's so much fun. It is definitely one of those cards that will make you lose friends.
I'm glad one of us is the voice of the people.
All right. So another high for new Magic stuff. Let's talk about our favorite set of the year. I think it's cool that all three of us had a different answer. Preston, you've kind of hinted at what your answer might be. Why don't you do the grand reveal to the people?
I, I was close to putting Foundations as my favorite. I'm really glad with how that set turned out, but Bloomberg is just so fun. A ton of great commanders, a bunch of great pieces. Everyone had a good time with it. I think like Sealed was really fun with it, if I remember correctly. People were really glad to play that. It's cute, it's cool. Everyone enjoyed it, and it's definitely either my favorite set of the year or second favorite after Foundations, but Foundations is kind of weird, and I felt like I should pick one that's more like a real set. So that's why I went with Bloombro. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
Bloomburrow is weird because it's a typal set. So there's outliers to this, but like for a large majority of it, it is you either care about one of these types or you don't. But if you do care about those types, then Bloomburrow's the cheese. But even then, like man, those showcase frames I really liked. They remind me a lot of the Eldraine showcase, and that's my favorite showcase of cards. And then I like all the cute little dudes. So I felt like I actually didn't end up playing that many of the new Bloomburrow cards. Like there's a handful of Bloomburrow cards I play, just because I don't have a typal deck of any of these types. But there's a handful of cards I play. But even then, I still enjoyed Bloomburrow because it's just cute. It's fun. And it feels magic-y. Like we had a couple really whack sets. Duskmourn was pretty weird. OTJ was weird. Mirza Karlov Manor was weird. So just to have Bloomburrow and it's like this is just a real Magic set, and it just feels like Magic, was really nice.
Yeah, Bloomborough was fun. Bloomborough gave us Glarb, and we should all be grateful for that. I thought that there was a lot of really fun pieces to add to like a multitude of decks. Like there's a few cards that you could argue are staples from that set. I just think it's such a cool way to bring in new cards. Like just a real cutesy set that's just all these woodland critters, and some of the cards are just absolute bangers. Plus the Bloomborough episode, like I said, it was fun. It's my favorite game that we played this year, so I got a lot of appreciation for that set.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Um, Jason, what about you? What was your favorite set of the year?
So I almost said Duskmourn, um, but I just had to go Fallout. The Fallout set, it was so cool. So many fun cards, so many cards that I really like playing. Um, and you know, thinking about it, thinking about when each set came out and how I felt about it, I was not into a single set more this year than I was the Fallout set. I was so excited. I literally bought the like packs of this basically anytime that I saw it. This is the most. This set had the most like collector booster packs that I bought. Um, just a great set. I love that they went into this type of a world, Bethesda video game, and turned it into actually a dope Magic set. There's so many just fun cards to play. One of my favorite ones is Strongback, the one that makes attaching equipment and auras cheaper, and it buffs the creature for each one attached to it. Tato Farmer's a fun one. Almost Perfect. That card is just cool because it's like you know how people are excited about the oh gosh, Iron Man suit from the Marvel set. Like people are just like, I'm gonna put Spore Frog in an Iron Man suit just because. I thought that this was like in that same vein where you're putting someone in power armor. It's just fun. And then the commanders that came out were really cool too. I like that there was an energy commander that actually was pretty good. So I just had a ton of fun with this set.
Yeah, I really love Fallout. I have all four of the precons ready to go anytime we feel like we might want to play those together, because I feel like they all play fairly well together. Some of them a little better, but they're really fun. The Mothman is awesome. Strong was one of my favorite cards of the year. That was one of the ones I was maybe considering. So yeah, you were right to enjoy that set.
This is like where I feel like Fallout was the perfect illustration on why I'm going to get over really not liking Universes Beyond. Because on one hand, I don't really care about Fallout. I've never been a fan of the video games. I tried playing a couple of them and they weren't really my thing. I don't really like the aesthetic. I don't really like how it meshes with the rest of the Magic lore and universe because I actually think that the Magic lore and IP is cool and is worth protecting and all that. However, it kind of doesn't matter because the cards are cool and they're kind of fun. Like, let's ignore the art. Mechanically, I really like a lot of these cards. Like, I was just kind of like skimming on Scryfall here, like just like what some of the new cards from this set were. And there's a couple really cool commanders that people like that are fun to play with, fun to play against. There's some weird cards like Nerd Rage. Do you guys remember Nerd Rage? It's a divination, but if you have like 10 cards in your hand, the creature gets like +10/+10 or something. Like it's just goofy. There's the bobbleheads. You mentioned Tato Farmer. Tato Farmer freaking rules. There's a lot of good equipment support. Like there's like Cogsworth and there's the Pip-Boy 3000. Like there's just some Nuka-Cola vending machine is just a terrifying
I love
engine
Nuka-Cola
piece.
vending machine.
Like
I run that in Gimbal. It's so good.
it's so
Inventory
good.
management's
It's
another
so
good
good.
card from this set.
Yeah.
Inventory management, split
Radstorm.
second,
Radstorm's another one.
Radstorm, Radstorm.
And a lot of the reprints were really cool, like with some of the new art.
Yeah. So I think that's why I'm hopeful for Universes Beyond. Is like even though I think a lot of the there's a lot of danger as far as like damaging the IP of Magic or the image of Magic, but as long as the game is still fun and the mechanics of the cards are cool, I'm still gonna play, and I'm still gonna play with those cards.
And one other thing that I wanted to mention about this set, the Pip-Boy art cards are some of the coolest cards Like, just coolest looking cards. My favorite one is Farewell. The Pip-Boy art for Farewell is just so mwah. And I pulled a foil one out of one of the collector booster packs, and just the way that the foil looks on, oh, I love it so much.
Heck yeah, man. So my favorite set for the year, I'm gonna take Preston's debatable number one. It's Foundations. Foundations freaking rules, guys. So I'm a 60 card guy. I love Commander, but I have a soft spot for 60 cards. So the fact that we have a set where it's kind of a core set, so it's supposed to be like easy entry into standard. This set specifically is going to be standard legal for longer than the average set, so that people can keep coming to this set for support. And there's just a ton of good support for different archetypes here. But it's more than just that, because it's also like not the word vomit that we're used to in our games. Like the cards are simpler, they read well, they're nice to look at. It feels like Magic, man. It like forget all the weird universes beyond, forget all the weird stuff like everyone wearing detective hats and Murders at Karlov Manor. This is just like straight up just feels like old school Magic with like simple, easy to read cards where you understand what you're doing. The art is sick, and they're still pretty strong, and you're excited to play them. And that's Foundations, baby, while also being an entry point into Standard. So I freaking love this set. I've already picked up a bunch of singles for this set. Preston, I know you opened a box. You were also really high on this set. And as I'm like looking at the list, there's even more cards that I'm gonna have to find homes for. Like I really like this set, man. It's an almost perfect Magic set. It's an almost perfect Magic set.
It does have Foundations though. Those anime art cards are a little off of Magic, but
Yeah, but like one of them's also Lion War Elves, which is like a classic Magic card, you know, or Day of Judgment, a classic Magic card. So like the like really rare weird aesthetics, I don't care. That doesn't bother me. Some people really like
Yeah,
that stuff. It's fine.
I don't think that the art styles like that. I think that that's just a fun bonus thing that you can get. You know, you get cool looking like styled art cards. That's what I was saying about the Pip-Boy cards from the Fallout set. I have not dove too deep into Foundations, to be honest with you. I was excited for everything that they were doing with it. The fact that, you know, it makes me want to play Standard a little bit more. Not, I don't think that I will, but this would be the one that I jump into because of it. Because my biggest problem with Standard is is the fact that you have to buy cards all the time in order to keep up with the format, because stuff rotates out. And at some point, decks that you've built and put a lot of time, effort, and money into just won't be legal anymore. That kind of bugs me. And I know that, you know, people can just, you know, break out of that. And if you want to just play casually and play with whatever standard deck you have, like, even if it's not, like, standard legal, but it was standard legal at some point, I know people can do that. This is Magic. People do weird stuff like that all the time. I just didn't like that concept for a constructed format. So the fact that these cards are going to be around a lot longer, that definitely is a lot more interesting to me.
Well, it also helps that normal Standard sets, they change from 2 years to 3 years, so they're already going in that right direction anyway. So
I also like that this set had the option to, like, you could buy a collection. Like, if you were just getting into Magic, you could buy
a starter kit
ton of cards.
of playable cards.
Playable cards at a reasonable price. And you would be set to start building decks and playing the game. Because I think stuff like that is really, really good. A really, really good way to bring new players in. To help kind of catch up with where they feel they might have to be in order to start building decks. Because one of the biggest things that I hear from people who are just getting into Magic is, well, I don't have nearly as many cards as you, and it's like, you're going to have to play for a while to get cards like I do, unless you just buy cards all the time. So the fact that this is an option for new players is really, really cool.
Bloomburrow is my favorite set as a commander player. Foundations is the best set for Magic this year by far.
Yeah. Because whether or not you are a standard player, you have to acknowledge that, like, if standard isn't happy and healthy, that the game is worse off. So the fact that standard specifically got some good love, well, still, I mean, like, a lot of these are cards that you're going to be excited to play in your commander decks. It's good. It's good, just all around. All right, next category is our favorite commander deck that we built this year. Preston, why don't you start us off?
All right, so my favorite deck that I ended up building this year was my Judith Carnage Connoisseur deck. Uh, it's all about casting instants and sorceries that either I can do to make creature tokens, fill up my board, or I can give them Death Touch and Lifelink, and the cards themselves are really cheap. Deal 1 damage to all your opponent's creatures. Deal X damage to your opponents, so dealing a ton of damage to everything, killing all our creatures really fast, gaining a bunch of life, and it has like a little treasure sub theme, which is kind of fun. So, yeah, I just really like how this deck came out. It did everything I wanted it to do. It's a little oppressive sometimes we're bringing it out, so I don't pull it out super often, but every time I do, I have a good time with it.
Yeah, what I was going to say about Judith is every time I see Judith come out, I always kind of like brace for impact because it's just like I always feel like going into the game, it's like, all right, I need to either get going fast or I'm not going to have any creatures ever and I'm going to die really quickly. So, but Judith is cool and it's a strong commander deck. So, I see why it's your favorite because it is a deck that I see, I would say, often in our commander games. And I just see how much fun it is to play. Like, maybe not the most fun for me to play against, but it's still a cool deck, and I see the fun behind it, especially considering I like to do kind of degenerate stuff like that too sometimes.
I get to give Star of Extinction lifelink, guys. I'm just so happy.
It's pretty cool,
That
actually.
specifically is so freaking funny. Like, you'll just gain like hundreds of life right then and there. It's
10
so good.
creatures is 200 life.
Yeah. I mean, I like the deck in the sense of I like just the Rakdos shell of kill things and have a little bit of chaos. I like that, and I also like that it kind of gives some homes to cards you might not play otherwise. Like, there's like End the Festivities kind of cards, right? Like, just deal like 1 damage to everything. Like, those cards don't get like a ton, like, they're staple. It was like a staple-ish card when it was in Standard, but like in Commander, people don't really play it that much. So to kind of give cards new homes after they rotate out of Standard is nice, but it is kind of brutal. It is kind of brutal. You also have Blood Moon in the deck, so that's
Well, of
also
course.
yeah. So
You're already not gonna like me. I might as well go for it.
yeah, it's not my favorite deck to play against, but it is. It does have a cool factor. I do remember on the MKM episode we talked about Judith because we were all like, guys, this commander is spicy. This is like a really good commander. So yeah, I'm still here on that. Jason, what about you? What was your favorite deck that you built this year?
My favorite deck I built this year was Glarb, Calamity's Augur. It's a deck that I'm gonna have for a long time. I'm gonna play it, maybe not every single time that I play Magic, but it is something that I will play. Like, it's gonna make an appearance more times than not. It does the thing that I love to do the most. Look at the top card of my library whenever I want. Whenever I want. I just get to play that, and it's like, I'm doing this because I can. Not even if it's good. I know I've looked at the top card 50 times already. I'm just doing this because I can.
Well, you also have Serval too as a tap ability. So if you don't like what's on top, you can throw it away.
Exactly. That's one thing that I really enjoy about Glarb is that he gives me that card selection. And I can also play cards from the top. Being able to play lands from the top is huge. Because now I can, like, kind of sculpt my draws. It's just so much fun to pilot. And it's frogs, dude. I have a frog sub theme in there, and every time I've played this deck, and I know that it's gonna happen where I don't get lands or like I'm just not drawing into my frogs or whatever. But every time I've played this deck, all of like most of my frogs have made an appearance. So it really feels like a frog deck whenever you play against it, which I love. And I get to turn other people's stuff into frogs. Let's all have frogs. It's a frogtastic time.
It is really cool. I really like this deck, and I like playing against it, and it does a lot of the things I just like, where it's like a lot of like because the frogs from Bloomborough specifically were the Simic color pair for draft, and it was like a blinky value archetype, and there's like obviously like this isn't like a frog deck in the traditional sense. Otherwise, it would probably just be a Simic deck instead of having Glarb as the commander, but it still has a lot of those cards in there. So you're still doing like the blinky value plays, but then like because you have all these other things going on, like you have like Kiora's follower in there, which is really cool because then like you can do Glarb's ability multiple times for Surveil, which is pretty spicy. And then there's other scary things you can untap. It's kind of a lands deck because you got like Tatiova and like Retreat to Coral Helm in there. So it's it's just a value deck, and it's cool, and it pops off, and it's good. It's fun.
Retreat to Coral Helm is in the deck mainly for that untap ability, so I can untap Glarb. Um, and if I'm able to play multiple lands on my turns, then I'm untapping Glarb multiple times. I'm putting cards into my graveyard, or at least sculpting what I want to draw into my hand, or what I can play off the top. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do. And like I said earlier, this was the deck where I accidentally discovered that combo between Fortune Teller's Talent and Sensei's Divining Top. It's like, oh, 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 this is really good.
Yeah, you should have added like I don't know, like Lab Maniac, or is there a frog that says if you have no cards left in your deck you win? Because that would be because like
After I draw,
you can't do it if it's not flavorful, right?
after I draw Frog onto Laboratory Maniac's creature type, there is.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. So there you go. That's your win con. Uh, and then I think my favorite deck I built this year. It was kind of hard to decide because what a lot of my brewing is I take decks I already have, and then I keep the theme, but I just change the commander, and then that means I change a lot of the 99. So with that said, while I'm kind of always messing with my decks, I'm not always building new decks. But one I did build this year was Ruhan of the Fomori, and I got the Sheldon secret layer, so I have the version that's actually like Sheldon as the card. And it's a Jeskai vehicles deck, which has been super fun. I used to have Shorakai as a vehicle deck, and it was really fun. I've always liked vehicles ever since they came out in Kaladesh. Um, and so I was really excited to get a commander for him in Shorakai, but then like Shorakai just kind of seemed too generically strong, like too for value wise. So I took my vehicle deck apart and I rebuilt it this year after like 2 years. I took Shorakai deck almost 2 years ago. So it was cool to rebuild it with my new ideas on how I like to build commander decks, adding another color. Shorakai's still in the 99, but it's a lot less scary when you're not guaranteed access to it every game. Um, it's artifact value, but you got like a bit of a control package because you can like, vehicles are really good about getting around board wipes. So it's been a lot of fun. And I'm trying to find ways to like upgrade it. I don't know if I want to keep this a Jeskai deck, but I don't want to go back to Azorius and have Shorakai as a commander again. So, but I've been really, really happy getting to play with vehicles again.
Vehicles are fun. Is this when did you play this?
I played it on the Patreon episode that's not out.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Did
So-
you say the name of this deck?
It's called Sheldon's Hot Rod. Yeah.
Man, I thought you were gonna call it Drunk Drivers.
I should have called it that because the theme of the Patreon episode is we were all intoxicated. It was no theme, but we were all intoxicated, and
The theme was alcohol.
yeah, so that was fun. So I think I made a drunk driving joke. in the video.
That was my favorite part about this deck was that you played it in that episode, and that it was like, since we were drinking and it was vehicles, it was drinking and driving. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
The flavor there.
That's Jason's real favorite thing to do.
No, I don't
Dang.
drink and drive. I don't do that.
He's
It's horrible. Don't do that.
he's-
Call a friend. Call an Uber.
he's a responsible Uber driver. All right. So we got 2 more categories left. We're starting to run long, so let's see how quickly we can get through this. But I want to make sure that we flush these out because I think these last 2 topics are good. Next up is something you learned this year. Preston, as a Magic player or a brewer or whatever, what is something that you feel like you have learned in the year of 2024?
I have learned I am able to find more ways to make any color fun as long as I can get the right brew going. Like, I used to definitely be a very much Selesny, ramp out all my green stuff, use all my white protection spells and board wipes and all that. But as I've gotten better at deck building and I've explored the colors more, I've found ways to enjoy them all. So I'm no longer like, oh man, I hate blue. Red is awful. I never want to play it. Don't enjoy black. So I've gotten much more appreciative of all the colors in Commander.
Is that something that's been going on for a long year and just got better in this year, or did it just like hit you like a ton of bricks this year?
I started last year. Like there were some decks where I finally started to branch out a little more, but I think this year is when I really feel like I can strongly say I'm pretty okay with all the colors at this point, finding ways to make them fun.
Heck yeah. What about you, Jason? What's something that you feel like you learned this year?
Um, I learned that I just need to have more fun with deck building. Not that I didn't have fun building decks in the past, but it was always when I would build decks, my goal was like, how can I make this like super optimized and not necessarily like competitive, but just like making sure that I'm able to do whatever I want at basically any point in the game, and it just having the strongest cards that I can for whatever my game plan is. And you know what? I think I have more fun when I play games, when I have more fun with the deck building process. The moment that I realized that this was something that I needed to do for myself was when I built my Jalira Master Polymorphous deck. So I may have talked about this on the channel before, I don't remember, but I built this super jank mono blue Jalira deck, and the whole goal of this deck is to activate its ability and reveal cards from the top until I reveal Stormtide Leviathan. And then it's just giving all my creatures Island Walk or Flying. And there's so many fun cards in there that do that type of stuff. Like there's one that's Fish Liver Oil that gives a creature Island Walk. There's a really old enchantment, artifact that I cannot think of it. It's like it's a pair of shoes. It's a pair of shoes, and you pay 2 mana, and you can give a creature Island Walk. You can give a target creature Island Walk, and it's such a jank fun card that I've literally never seen anyone play ever. And I just had so much fun when I was building that deck, and I was like, I should do this more. Just have fun with the cards that I'm putting into my decks instead of trying to just put the strongest things in there to win games. Just have fun with it.
There's so many layers to what you just said. Because on one hand, there's like the literal example of that commander deck, which is that you probably could build a deck like that, like a polymorphous deck that is actually really good. But you were like, nah, man, I want this Leviathan. And that's just like fun and unique. Take a commander that's like it's not even that popular of a commander, build it a way that no one else is really building it, and then mostly work with what you got. Like that's freaking epic. That's a really fun way to have fun building. But then also, like, I've kind of wanted to do a podcast topic. Maybe we tackle this next year of how do you justify staples? Because Jason and I both do the thing where we have a binder that has a bunch of the commander staples and like the expensive staples. And if we want them in multiple decks, we just move it between multiple decks. And and those cards make your deck stronger. So you might say, oh, if I put it in my deck, this is just a stronger deck. But if you are building a jankier or weaker kind of deck, you almost want those cards in it as well, just so that your deck can compete with the other decks at the table. So there's this weird balancing argument of like, when do you or do you not play the staples as far as like deck building goes and having more fun with your brews. But yeah, I like the sentiment though. And it's a cool deck. We've got to play against that deck a few times, Jason. And I like it.
I just have fun with it, and you know what? If the Stormtide Leviathan dies or gets removed from the game or whatever, my plan at that moment is to lose the game. That is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
You do get very sad whenever it happens.
As
You're
long
like,
as I do the
"Okay."
thing. As long as I do the thing, I'll be all right.
Oh man, I remember when I still had my Prosper deck. I remember I was like, I played one of those cards that like everyone exiled the top card of your library, and I exiled the Leviathan. Oh, so good, so funny.
Sad, so sad,
so funny. So the thing I learned this year is no matter what, just play more lands. And I know that like I have the completely wrong crowd to say this. Because Jason believes that 30 lands is enough for your decks. Preston is a little bit better than Jason, but he's not that much better than Jason.
What? Yes, I am.
You in the Christmas
Wait a
episode,
minute.
you ran a
Hey!
35 land deck with Temple of the
That's
False God and
fine!
not green.
Yeah, and it worked.
So I used to think that like Lucky Magic number 37 is how many lands I wanted in my deck. And that was always my starting point. And if I felt like my deck was low to the ground on my curve, I might cut 1 or 2 lands. And if I felt like my curve was pretty high, I would add 1 or 2 lands. That was like my philosophy for a long time. And in certain kinds of decks, that's okay. But I think in a lot of decks, that's not correct, and you still should run more lands. So here's why, is I've been convinced of the math. Frank Karsten, who's like one of the smartest people alive, he's done a lot of like math articles about magic math, and he has convinced me that you need to just run more lands, period, because if you ramp and then you miss a land drop later in the game, the ramp didn't matter. So you need to be more efficient with your land drops, and that means you always have to hit your land drops. So the kind of deck that can run fewer lands are the decks that have really, really, really low curves, and they're constantly getting card advantage. So like Spellslinger decks, like decks that are like cantripping. Those decks can run fewer lands. But basically every other deck, like your card draw or whatever, is usually 3 mana or more. And that's how you find your land drops. So if you're not drawing extra cards early in the game, you need to have more lands in your deck to begin with to increase the chances that you're going to have more lands early on in the game. Like I've even had this where I have like 38 plus lands in my deck and I still miss a land drop early to mid game. And that really messes you up, even if you draw a couple extra cards. So a great way to get around this is MDFCs and bounce lands. Like bounce lands kind of act like guaranteeing your next draw, or your next land drop, I mean. And then there's other synergies. I should do a video just like talking about how bounce lands are overpowered. But MDFCs also, because a lot of the MDFCs you can just generically play as like, this spell is just kind of good and I might want to cast it. But then in a pinch, it's also a land. So I feel like MDFCs are a good way to up the land count in your deck without having to put literally more lands in your deck. But even then, I've just started adding more lands and MDFCs to my decks, and so far, it is working splendidly. Like a deck I would usually run 37 in now, I now run like 39, 40 in, and my games are going way better. So the math checks out.
You don't need all them lands, bud.
It's working for me. I don't know what to tell you. I miss land drops way less often than you do, Jason.
It's actually pretty accurate. You know how I feel about this. I have no problem with playing, bounce lands in certain decks, and I especially have zero problem with playing MDFCs. I feel like I've been pretty high on MDFCs like the entire time that they've been out. I think that they're super useful, and I do believe that the strategy with them is the majority of the time you play them as a land. Because if it's in your opening hand, there's absolutely no point in holding onto that spell if you don't have like a lot more lands in your hand and you're able to play that spell early or something like that, unless you actually have a plan for that. But I still think that they're really good in most decks, especially if you are going to play bounce lands in those same decks, because then you can put those cards back into your hand and cast them for the spell if you need to.
Yeah. Preston, am I wrong, or are you feeling like it's fine?
I just don't appreciate the insinuation that I don't play enough lands. My dinosaur deck has 38, Strong has 39, Aisi has 40, Geigen has 43,
No, I was
and
just
Flubs had 50. I
no, no,
had
no,
50 lands in that deck. Never call me out on that again.
no, no, no.
Okay, well,
I was just poking
Flubs.
because you played a Jeskai deck just like 2 days ago on the channel. You played a Jeskai deck that only had like 34 or 35 lands, and it had Temple of the False God. That was just like,
And it didn't hurt me. It did not hurt to have it.
yeah,
I was
I
perfectly
will say
fine.
for Flubs and
yeah. Those make sense to run
AEC,
a ton
those
of
are
lands,
land
right?
decks, so
Yeah.
that's why you need a ton of lands in there. And even Geigen makes sense because if you're putting cards from your library into your graveyard, you'd probably rather they be lands most of the time.
Well, and it's a 6 mana commander that's going to get removed, so you want to
Yeah, but you
just.
don't need 43 lands for a 6 mana commander.
Oh, Jason. So our last
43? That's so
So our
much.
last category of the day is something you want to try next year, something in Magic that you want to try in the year 2025. Preston, what's something you want to try?
Okay, so for me, I've been thinking about doing it for years now. There's a couple great options at this point. I just need to do it. I want to make a saga deck. I like sagas. I liked them when they first came out. I thought they were fun. Uh, there's a lot of commanders at this point. You can build around them. I'm not sure which one I want yet, but I'm going to do it sometime next year. I promise you.
Have you? So I know that there's a handful of options. Do you know which commander you might want to do?
I'll probably do Tom Bombadil because he's the five color option. I want to do a Nixia, the green, white, black one. Who cares about sagas?
I think
That's the one I
Anikia
would.
was the face commander, right? So
Oh,
it's the backup
oh,
commander from that precon.
Narcy,
Yeah, Narcy.
Fable.
That
Yeah,
sounds right.
yeah.
Maybe.
So that's the one I would want as commander. But I would want Tom Bombadil in the 99. But obviously that's not allowed, so I'll probably do it the other way. But I'm not entirely sure yet. I might brew a couple options and see what I like the most.
Any specific sagas you're really hoping that you get to play?
Uh, no, I mean, I just like most of them. Like, more often than not, I'm a big fan of what a saga does, so there's not too many where, like, I specifically care about it, but
Yeah, that'll be exciting. Sagas are really cool. Jason, what about you? What's something that you're hoping to do or try in 2025?
Something that I'm going to do and a deck that I'm going to try is the bobblehead deck. I'm going to finally put that together because since they came out in the Fallout set, I've wanted to build that deck and I've wanted to try and figure out some sort of way to where I can like get infinite activations of the luck bobblehead and just basically be like, look, I can do this as many times as I want. So let's just go ahead and assume that I rolled a 6, 7 times and I win the game. But that does also mean that there is the possibility that somebody at the table is like, nope, I'm not conceding. You have to do it.
I'm
And then
gonna
I'll
make you
just
have it
sit.
every time.
I'll
I'll,
just sit there and I'll roll. I'll roll for hours, dude. I do not care. Until I get 7 6s in a row. And this really goes back to what I said that I learned. This is just going to be a deck that I'm going to just have fun building. I'm just going to have a good time putting it together because I know I'm just trying to build it to do one specific thing. Whether that thing is going to happen every time or if it's going to be like viable or not, I just know that I'm going to have fun building the deck, which means I'm going to have a ton of fun playing this deck. So I'm really excited to get that, off the ground.
Richard played a bobblehead deck recently on Commander Clash, and someone on Reddit apparently did the math. And what the best way to win with bobblehead is you clone the luck bobblehead itself, and I think it's like if you make 7 copies of it, then you guarantee your luck is the best. But even then, it's a 15% chance. And then like if you have any less, then your percentage of it working goes down. If you have more, then your percentage of it working goes down because now you have too many things to worry about. So it's ridiculous. Like it's so bad. Like if Preston makes you play it out, we'll be there all night. Even if you like demonstrate a loop, if you demonstrate a loop of like, I can do this infinite number of times, we might be there for a very long time. So
we'll be there to tell your wife good morning the next day.
Yeah. So something I want to try in 2025 is I want to build a new aggro deck, one that's not going to piss people off. So we have this bad habit of late at night being like, you guys want to play one more game? And we'll be like, all right, if it's a fast game. And sometimes that fast game is not so fast. So I have been trying to get more aggressive and have more aggressive decks. And I did have one. I had a Kudo King Among Bears deck. I've played it on the Modern Horizons 3 episode of our show. And I freaking loved that deck. It was super cool. It was very aggro. It was my go fast deck. The problem is that there were a couple specific cards in the deck that really annoyed people. And if I don't play those cards, it makes the deck significantly worse. So what ends up happening is that even though like Kudo itself, like kind of like, yeah, I'm making all of your creatures 2/2s, but they get to keep their abilities, so it's not that bad. The other cards surrounding Kudo in that deck, there were a couple that were really obnoxious to people, and so I ended up I got guilted into taking that deck apart. But now I'm in a position where I don't have a great aggro deck. I have a couple decks that are like, just like enough value-y big creatures that maybe I can get there semi-fast, but I don't have like a real aggro go fast deck anymore. And I need to build one that people will just accept that I just went burr faster than they did. So I don't really know what the answer is. I don't really know like what my commander is going to be, what colors I'm going to do. I haven't really figured that out. I'm either going to do Boros or Naya, but I don't know. I've also thought maybe Mardu. I just know I'm for sure doing red-white, and then I don't know if I'll add a third color. So I'm trying to figure it out, but I just, when we say, well, one more game, we need to make sure that one more game goes faster.
All right, I'll start playing Tristani more often for those.
Yeah, I'll play Joyra every time.
That's not even a good that's not a good option, Jason, because you have a lot long solitaire turns with that deck. So that doesn't even fix our problem.
Hey, no, the game goes fast. My turns don't go fast.
Okay. Well, guys, that's going to do it. That is our year-end review for 2024. It was a good year. We had a little bit of growth with the channel. We had some really cool videos. We really, thanks to Jason taking over editing almost every episode of the podcast, we were able to do this podcast almost perfectly. Like we missed only a couple weeks, and it's been a lot of fun. We enjoy getting together and talking about Magic and hanging out with you guys and reading your comments and making you guys smile with our bad videos. And we're excited to come back in a few weeks with doing it again, coming back with more content. Let us know what you guys want to see next year in the comments. Let us know what your favorite cards were, your favorite sets were, and what you're looking forward to in 2025. It's going to be a good year. Have a good holiday break, good Christmas, good New Year, all that good stuff, and we will see you guys soon. Bye.